Book 2, Chapters 1 through 5. Chapter 1. Introduction, containing the reason for the author's revision for his first and second books. Rufinus, who wrote an ecclesiastical history in Latin, has erred in respect to chronology, for he supposes that what was done against Athanasius occurred after the death of the Emperor Constantine. He was also ignorant of his exile to the Gauls and of various other circumstances. Now we, in the first place, wrote the first two books of our history following Rufinus, but in writing our history from the third to the seventh, some facts we've collected from Rufinus, others from different authors, and some from the narration of individuals still living. Afterward, however, we pursued the writings of Athanasius, wherein he depicts his own sufferings and how, through the calamities of the Eusebian fiction, he was banished, and judged that more credit was due him who had suffered, and to those who were witnesses of the things they described, than to such as having been dependent on conjecture, and had therefore erred. Moreover, having obtained several letters of the persons eminent in that period, we have availed ourselves of the assistance also in tracing out the truth as far as possible. On this account, we were compelled to revise the first and second books of this history, using, however, the testimony of Rufinus, where it is evident that he could not be mistaken. It should also be observed that in our former edition, neither the sentence of this deposition, which was passed on Arius, nor the emperor's letters were inserted, but simply the narration or facts, in order that the history might not become bulky and weary to the readers with tedious matters of detail. But in the present edition, such alterations and additions have been made for your sake, O sacred man of God, Theodore, in order that you might not be ignorant what the prince wrote in their own words, as well as the decisions of the bishops in their various synods, wherein they continually altered the confession of faith. Wherefore, whatever we have deemed necessary, we have inserted in this letter, the edition having adopted this course in the first book. We shall endeavor to do the same in the conservative portion of our history. I mean the second. On this, let us now enter. Chapter 2. Eusebius, Bishop of Nicomedia, and his party, by again endeavoring to induce the Arian heresy, create disturbances in the churches. After the death of Emperor Constantine, Eusebius, Bishop of Nicomedia, and Theogenus of Nicaea, imagining that a favorable opportunity had arisen, used their utmost efforts to expunge the doctrine of homoousion and to introduce Arianism in its place. They nevertheless despaired of effecting this if Athanasius should return to Alexandria. In order, therefore, to accomplish their designs, they sought the assistance of that presbyter by whose means Arius had been recalled from exile a little before. How this was done shall now be described. The presbyter in question presented the will and the request of the deceased king to his son Constantius, who, finding those dispositions in which he was most desirous of, for the empire of the East was by his father's will appropriated to him, treated the presbyter with great consideration, loaded him with favors, and ordered that free access should be given him both to the palace and to himself. This license soon obtained for him familiar intercourse with the empress as well as with her eunuchs. There was at that time a chief eunuch of imperial bedchamber named Eusebius. Him the presbyter persuaded to adopt Arian's views, after which the rest of the eunuchs were also prevailed on to adopt the same sentiments. Not only this, but the empress also, under the influence of the eunuchs and the presbyters, became favorable to the tenets of Arius, and not long after the subject was introduced to the emperor himself. Thus it became gradually diffused throughout the court, and among the officers of the imperial household and guards, until at length it spread itself over the whole population of the city. The chamberlains in the palace discussed this doctrine with the women, and in the family of every citizen there was a logical contest. Moreover, the mischief quickly extended to other provinces and cities, the controversy, like a spark, insignificant at first, exciting in the ardors of the spirit of contention, for everyone who inquired the cause of the tumult found immediately occasion for disputing, and determined to take part in the strife at the moment of making the inquiry. By general altercation of this kind, all order was subverted. The agitation, however, was confined to the cities of the east, those Illyricum and the western parts of the empire. Meanwhile, they're perfectly tranquil, because they would not annul the decisions of the Council of Nicaea. As this affair increased, going from bad to worse, Eusebius of Nicomedia and his party looked upon popular ferment as a piece of good fortune, for only thus, they thought, they would be enabled to constitute some one who held their own sentiments Bishop of Alexandria. But the return of Athanasius at that time defeated their purpose, for he came thither fortified by a letter from one of the Augusti, which the younger Constantine, who bore his father's name, addressed to the people of Alexandria from Treves, a city in Gaul. A copy of the epistle here is subjoined. Chapter 3. Athanasius, encouraged by the letter of Constantine the Younger, returns to Alexandria. Constantine Caesar to the members of the Catholic Church of the Alexandrians. It cannot, I conceive, have escaped the knowledge of your devout minds that Athanasius, the emperor, expositor of the venerated law, was sent for a while into the Gauls, lest he should sustain some irreparable injury from the persuasiveness of his bloodthirsty adversaries, whose ferocity continually endangered his sacred life. To evade this perverseness, therefore, he was taken from the jaws of the men who threatened him into the city under my jurisdiction, where as long as it was his appointed residence, he has been abundantly supplied with every necessity, although his distinguished virtue, trusting in divine aid, would have made light of the pressure of more rigorous fortune. And since our sovereign, my father Constantine Augustus, of blessed memory, was prevented by death from accomplishing his purpose of restoring this bishop to his see, and to your most sanctified piety, I have deemed it proper to carry his wishes into effect, having inherited the task from him. With how great veneration he has been regarded by us, you will learn on his arrival among you, nor need any one be surprised at the honor I have put upon him, since I have been alike influenced by a sense of what was due to so excellent a personage, and the knowledge of your affectionate solicitude respecting him. May divine providence preserve you, beloved brethren. Relying on this letter, Athanasius came to Alexandria, and was most joyfully received by the people of the city. Nevertheless, as many in it as had embraced Arianism, combining together, entered into conspiracies against him, by which frequent seditions were excited, affording a pretext to the Eusebians for accusing him to the emperor of having taken possession of the Alexandrian church on his own responsibility, in spite of the adverse judgment of a general council of bishops. So far, indeed, did they succeed in pressing their charges that the emperor became exasperated and banished him from Alexandria. How indeed this came about, I shall hereafter explain. Chapter 4. On the death of Eusebius Pamphilus, Acharius succeeds to the bishopric of Caesarea. At this time, Eusebius, who was bishop of Caesarea in Palestine, and had the surname of Pamphilus, having died, Acacius, his disciple, succeeded him in the bishopric. This individual published several books and, among others, a biographical sketch of his master. Chapter 5. The death of Constantine the Younger. Not long after this, the brother of Emperor Constantine the Younger, who bore his father's name, having invaded those parts of the empire which were under the government of his younger brother Constans, engaged in a conflict with his brother's soldiery and was slain by them. This took place under the consulship of Academius and Proclus.